listening to Sasquatch Syndicate.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard.
And all the ape believers don't want any of the paranormal believers to say anything because they're all whacked and screwed up and we don't want them. And all the paranormal believers don't want, go to the ape believers saying, well, you're all closed-minded. You're not open to the fact that it does this and it does that.
And I look over my left shoulder and this creature is running through the woods and it's bulldozing the brush down. And I knew, man, this thing is going to get me.
Sasquatch Syndicate. I'm your host, Chuck, out in Seattle, Washington, along with Paul in Portland, Oregon. Thanks to everyone for listening and those following us at SasquatchSyndicate.com and on our social media outlets. For those participating in the Sasquatch Syndicate monthly t-shirt giveaway, this month's winner was Ed Sequeira from Schaumburg, Illinois. So Ed, thanks for listening to the show, and please check your Facebook for winner notification. So welcome to the show, everyone. I hope everybody had a great July and hope everybody's staying cool this summer. I also wanted to thank everyone who followed our road trip on social media. For those that missed it, our team traveled over 5,700 miles on our journey across the U.S. We stopped in Montana, Wyoming, Missouri, and the deep Ozarks of Arkansas, and were able to visit with a lot of different people, heard a lot of different encounters, and for those that we had time to visit along the way, I just wanted to say it was great to meet you. Thanks to all the tribes and all those in the National Park Services that allowed us access along the way. It was an epic summer trip, and I really hope we get to do it again next year. But we're looking forward to sharing your stories on upcoming episodes. So for our listeners out there, we really do have a great fall lineup. So looking forward to sharing what we learned along the way. So with us on the show tonight is Rocky. He lives in the rural areas of Pearl River, Louisiana. Rocky grew up outside of St. Bernard Parish, but has always been an avid hunter, fisherman, and a general outdoorsman. Since he's moved up near Pearl River, however, he's ran across a few things he really can't explain in the woods while out hunting. So, just a little bit of background on the area. For those that aren't familiar or have never heard of creatures in Louisiana, there's several different legends, but they're described as bipedal, 6 to 10 foot tall, varying degrees of hair, very human faces, long arms, very large, very big prints, and very similar to Sasquatch. In the area where Rocky lives, there is a legend of a creature called the Honey Island Swamp Monster. The first sighting was actually in 1963 by a gentleman by the name of Harlan Ford. He was a retired air traffic controller who took up wildlife photography, but after his death in 1980, they found a reel of Super 8 film that showed the creature, and it was amongst his belongings. So there's been sightings in this area since 1963. You can pick that up on SasquatchSyndicate.com. We've got a lot of different information, and I'll try to post not only the pictures that Rocky submitted, but some additional video stuff underneath this episode. So, and Rocky, great to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you.
So Rocky, if you wouldn't mind just sharing with our listeners a little bit about your background and maybe your views on Sasquatch or the Honey Island Swamp Monster prior to your encounter.
I've always been a kind of a believer since I'm a kid.
And down in Louisiana, I've heard it called Lettuce, the Honey Island Swamp Monster, even the Rougarou, more the Dogman type creature. Growing up, had you ever heard of Sasquatch or Bigfoot?
Yeah, growing up down there, I'd never heard of no such thing as Bigfoot down there.
So Rocky, I know you've done some research now just back on the Honey Island Swamp Monster since your encounter, but how far away are you from the area where that film was shot?
That's not far from where I live now. That's like 6 miles from the house where I live now.
So Rocky, can you explain to our listeners kind of where you live up near the, what do you call it, the Bogue Chitto River?
Bogue Chitto River. And I live off of 41, if you're looking on the map. you got the Bogue Chitto River. I live up Highway 41, and you got a river behind my house about a mile. And on that side, it goes towards the Bogue Chitto, and it's very, very remote. And the spot where I heard the Bigfoot tree knocks is by Lock 2 off of Highway 41. It's a blacktop road that goes through the woods. You got like 4 or 5 trailers that live back there. But down my house, the woods, it leads back to the Bogue Chitto. So these woods actually meet up with a river, and on the other side of the river is like the Bogue Chitto National Wildlife Refuge.
So Rocky, growing up as a kid, did you spend a lot of times in the outdoors?
Well, I grew up as a hunter. So when I moved to Pearl River, there's a reserve. It's a mile behind my house, but 6 miles from my house, there's they call it Lock 2. Kind of like it blocks the river off from one side of the river to the other side, and you can walk across it to the Bogue Chitto.
So for our listeners across the country that may not be aware, the Bogue Chitto Wildlife Refuge is about 40,000 square acres, and it goes in between Mississippi and Louisiana, but access is primarily by boat on the refuge's Louisiana side, and road access is available on the Mississippi side. But it's still an acquisition phase. They continue to add acres and acres and acres to this wildlife refuge.
And it goes for miles once you walk across the river. You can get lost very easy out there.
So Rocky, I know a lot of people are aware that, there's a lot of folks down there that make their livings off the swamp, and, hunting's kind of a way of life. But when do you get out?
During the week and weekends. And one thing about the Bogue Chitto, there's only like a handful of hunters, It's mostly people that go by boat. So it's very remote back there, very, very remote. And the woods goes for miles and miles and turns to swamps, to hardwood, back to swamps.
Yeah, I can imagine. It looks like the Amazon back there, just moving back in time. So the forest that I'm looking at, what type of trees inhabit that forest? And once you go into that wildlife refuge, what is it like in there?
It's real thick woods, and then it goes into like from thick woods to like cypress swamp. And you got like a bunch of creeks that go through the swamp to do scouting, So the rest of the time of the year, nobody goes back there in the woods. It's extremely remote. The only time people go back there is on deer season. So back in Bogue Chitto, oh man.
Rocky, for our listeners, can you share a little bit about how you access the swamps via boat? Do you have a John boat or a flat bottom boat?
Oh, it's called a flat boat, like a 25 horsepower. And you launch at the boat launch, and Bogue Chitto, you just go up the river. You can hit the bank anywhere. Well, a lot of rivers, mainly the rivers, see a lot of trees that are broken that fall down in them, So you can't take a boat. You can take a boat up to Bogue Chitto because that's a huge river. And there's a lot of rivers that break off of that river that goes way in the woods for miles. And you might be able to get through there with like a canoe or something.
So as you're navigating between the swamps, are you able to even open up the throttle, or are you just trolling?
Kind of trolling through it. Depends on what time of the year, because the river's higher at certain times of the year. And it's a sand bottom type of river. So in the summertime, like now, I heard they got a lot of sandbars. You might hit going up the river, trying to find your spot. But around October, the river's a little higher. Depends on the rain and stuff, but not with a big boat.
So you had shared with us you had your own experience up there near Pearl River. Can you kind of take our listeners into what you heard or what you saw?
And I moved to Pearl River, and I went out here scouting, and I heard some Bigfoot tree knocks for the first time in my life. So I kind of put 2 and 2 together, and I heard 2 different ones that day.
So Rocky, if you wouldn't mind, if you could just kind of talk about that day and the setting and what happened.
Well, you go park in the parking lot, and you cross this dam, you get to the other side of the river, and we walked about an hour way back in the woods, and we came to this lake, and it's a beautiful lake. We just hanging out looking. They had like a big sandy beach along the lake. And to my right, I heard 2 or 3 tree knocks. I thought it might have been somebody putting a deer stand up or something. But you're not allowed to build anything out there. And once I heard that on that side of the lake, and then on the left side of the lake, I heard another tree knock. And then for like a minute straight, they communicated with each other. Like he'll hit the tree 2 or 3 times, and On this side of the lake, I heard it hit the tree twice. And then I heard it hit the tree on this side of the lake 3 times. And then on the left side of the lake, it did it again. And then the last time I heard it, it hit the tree like 10 times straight. As fast as you can hit the tree with like a stick. I never thought I would ever hear anything like that in my life, you know. And I heard the tree knocks. I'm like, that's crazy. And I never been back since I heard the tree knocks. And when I heard the Bigfoot tree knocks, there's a lot of water back there in rivers. And them creeks stay very cold through the summer because they stay moving, you know. So the river's a little colder than most areas. And that's why I think, like, I don't think to be behind my house right now because it's too hot. There's not much water back here. But back where I heard the Bigfoot tree knocks, there's creeks all through the woods. And if I was a big hairy animal, I would want to relax in that cool creek every once in a while, you know?
Yeah, I would agree with your hypothesis there. Assuming they're like us, they need to be cooled off too, especially in that Louisiana humidity. So Rocky, I had one question. You mentioned you kind of pull up to a parking lot, you walk into the refuge. How far out do you have to go before you're completely disconnected, away from cell towers and out of service?
My friend said about 6 miles up the river you start losing service. But where I was, the phone basically works. I was like a mile off Lock 2, walked back in the woods, and I was only back in the woods like 40 minutes, if that, and I heard a Bigfoot tree knocks back there. But if I go, I never went researching ever since I heard that, you know. But if I go back there and kind of like just, instead of hunting, just look for signs, I think I found a bunch. And I heard whistling too. Where I live now, I heard whistling. And then one night I walked out on the porch about 10 o'clock at night. It was kind of a cold night. And this is one of the craziest things I've ever heard. It sounded like a fire truck, like a 1960s fire truck. Like it wound it real high and it went real low.
So, Rocky, when you first heard it, what type of vehicle did you think it was, or what type of siren?
Old, like an antique type of fire truck. Kind of
like those old sirens that start winding their way up.
Yeah, it went way high, way low. About 2 miles back in the woods, there's a road. I'm like, man, who would be riding down the road with an old fire truck 10 o'clock at night? But it never kept going, you know. It just did it once.
Now, did it start out with a more high-pitched sound, or did it start out with a lower-pitched sound and move up to a high?
It was, whatever it was, if you go get a siren, it sounded identical to a siren. Like it lasted 5 seconds, 10 seconds, you know, like the way you did it. It went real high, came back low. Then that's the strangest thing I've heard. Then I heard another one, like way back in the woods. I heard something respond to that. My mom and them, they don't believe me, but she heard it too. But they don't believe in that kind of stuff, you know. I'm more open-minded than them. And then a week later, I was watching Bigfoot on Sunday, and the girl in the video, she said she thought she heard a siren in the background, like a Bigfoot. So I put them two together, and it just kind of makes sense. That's what I think it is.
So, Rocky, besides the wood knocks, what else have you seen?
But where I'm living now, I sent y'all a picture of a handprint. Did y'all get that?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at it right now, and I will post it out underneath this episode.
Yeah, what y'all think about that? Does that look real to you?
Well, it's certainly hard to tell from one photograph, but it is very compelling that whatever it was did remove a good chunk of that tree.
And at the top of the handprint, you can see like the round part of like your fingertips, you know? Yeah, my nephew found that 3 years ago where I moved right here in Pearl River. That's 100 yards from the house. And that handprint on the tree, nobody believes me. Like nobody wants to believe in that. They had that back there. But when you look at it in person, it's like it was extreme.
Rocky, I was just curious. Have you ever grabbed the tree yourself or tried to rip off the same area?
I tried to put my hand on the tree and try to rip a piece of bark off. It was a pine tree, and I couldn't. My fingers didn't rip off nothing. Whatever it was, it's just powerful. So
you mentioned this is pretty close to your property. How many folks have went out and taken a peek at it, or do folks even want to go back there? Yeah, that's 100 yards from the house, the handprint. That's not far at all. So
we got like this little trail behind the house, and it takes you to the tree.
Did there seem to be any claw marks in the handprint there, or in that print that was in the tree?
It was more just like near your hand, you know, like that's what it looks like. But it's twice, 3 times as big as mine, and the roundness on top of the handprint, that's what made me believe that was real. And there's nobody back here to carve any hands in the tree. And it's whoever did it took his hand and scraped it like 2 feet down the tree. So underneath that handprint, it's no bark for 2 feet down the tree. And there's no bears around here. There's nothing like that.
Did you see around the tree any footprints or any evidence of any activity on the ground?
No, it's like a dry pine trees back here. So it's a lot of pine needles on the ground. So if something did walk through there, you can't tell. It's too dry. And but I found the handprint on the tree.
So Rocky, from this handprint photo that you sent us, how wide do you think that tree is? Did you ever measure it?
It's about 3 feet around, 4 feet. 3 feet around a circle. And the handprint's like 5 to 6 feet up the ground. And the funny thing about that, they have somebody left 3 tents on the ground, brand new tents. Somebody camped out in the area. It's kind of like a little camping spot. And I went back there. So whoever was there left all the camping equipment.
So did it look like they just jumped up and took off?
Yeah, like I don't know who camped there that night, but they left all the equipment, like all 3 tents, 3 brand new tents. And so I'm guessing whoever camped there that night, something must have messed with them, for them not to come back. And the handprint's telling more of a territorial type of thing, you know? Just let them know something's back here.
So Rocky, when you run into this stuff, are you out hunting or are you out scouting? What are you typically doing?
We were just going scouting, really. Because I just moved to Pearl River like 3 years ago. So all that's new to me, and it's free to hunt, so just park and walk through the woods. We probably walked a mile back in the woods.
Rocky, when you first heard the tree knocks, were you scared or what were you thinking?
No, I was curious. I went and walked around. Yeah, I wasn't terrified, but I heard the tree knocks. I didn't go walk exactly where I heard the tree knocks because it was real thick. I went walking probably 100 yards from where I heard it. And there's an old river that runs through the woods back there. You know, it kind of turns into like a swampy area. It's kind of real soft back there. So I couldn't really walk too far because the ground gets real sinky, you know.
Have you asked around other people that you know down there, Rocky, what they've seen or what they've heard down there?
Yeah, I got some buddies. I asked questions with him because he goes and camps 6 or 7 miles up the Bogue Chitto from the boat launch. And he spends 2 or 3 days out there in the woods. And not far from where I heard the tree knocks, he hunts. He comes off the river with a boat. He goes scouting all through the woods, you know. And he told me a story. He found 2 Bigfoot beds. So like you're walking through the woods. That was around December. All leaves in January. So he found 2 big old raked up leaves, 2 different beds. Like one was bigger than the other. And he said it was very strange, you know. And he sent me a picture, but I had to send that to you later. And that's not far from. Yeah, and he told me him and his 2 buddies was hunting in the tree stands one evening, and he heard something in between all 3 of them that he couldn't explain, like a really high scream. And he's not a big believer, but he kind of believes in it. And another story. 2 years ago, his friend stepped in a Bigfoot track. His friend wears a size 16, and his friend said the footprint was like twice as big as his foot. And that's off the Bogue Chitto.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So since you've been down there, and I know you haven't been down there a long time, have you had a chance to talk to any of the locals? Yeah,
I'm new out here in Pearl River, but I have some buddies that have been hunting the river for like 20 years, and he heard tree knocks, and he walked up on that Bigfoot bed. That's not far from where I heard the tree knocks either. That's like probably half a mile from where I heard the tree knocks. And I heard 2 of them that day. He found the bed, that they had 2 different beds, like raked up leaves. I guess they sleep on the ground, sunbathe, during the winter, you know, when it's cold. That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely look forward to getting a picture of the beds, but maybe you can just explain for our listeners kind of what those beds look like.
It wasn't like you could get into it. It's something like you would just take all the leaves. Like it's like 12 feet long, but like 6 feet wide, and it raked it up, leaves like 2 or 3 feet tall. And you can see the image of the body, whatever was sleeping there. They took a picture of it, and they got spooked and they left, you know.
So how'd they run across this bed?
They went scouting a whole different area to go find like some new deer land, some new deer spots. And he parked the boat on the river, the Bogue Chitto, and he walked like 2 miles in the woods off the river, like way in the woods. A place they'd never been before. They was using their phone, the GPS. And I had to get that picture and send it to you later.
Yeah, well, thanks, Rocky. And when we get that, we'll definitely post it.
You ever heard of that movie, The Honey Island Swamp Monster? The guy got a video of it or something?
Yeah, I've definitely seen that video, a couple hunters or something.
Yeah, well, I looked at the video, and he got like kind of pinpointed where he's seen that. And that's not far from where my friend seen the Bigfoot beds and the tree knocks. That's all within the same area.
It's Rocky. For myself and for the listeners, we didn't talk too much about Hurricane Katrina, but that also had quite a bit of effect on the swamps and the forests, I'd assume. Could you just give us an update, Rocky, on kind of what you see a decade after Hurricane Katrina? What do the swamps and the forests look like?
Yeah, it changed the woods and made it thicker because Katrina wiped out like most of the trees, you know. When the trees laid down, a lot of briar patches and stuff grew, so it's really, really thick. So there's tons of places to hide.
So, Rocky, for a predator there, what do they have to eat? What's the prey in the area, do you think, for a creature like Sasquatch there in the swamps?
Oh, tons of hogs. It's infested with hogs. It's nothing to see, when you say you're hunting in the deer stand, it's nothing to see 10, 15 hogs coming through the woods, you know. And there's plenty of food source, plenty of deers. And one thing about down here, there's a lot of swamps. And just say like a Bigfoot to live off of, like frogs, turtles, armadillos. That's all stuff you can easily catch if you was a Bigfoot. So around a lot of these swamps, that's where you hear a lot of noises.
What type of food sources does the waterways produce there?
Tons of fish, from bass to catfish to all kinds of fish. And there's a lot of bullfrogs and stuff around here too, like the big bullfrogs.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of swamps with that, and because I got buddies that go hunting bullfrogs at night, and they catch 30 or 40 of them with a scoop net. And there's a lot of food. I heard stories of they love hogs. They eat hogs.
Yeah, we have a lot of people in Texas report, they see them out hunting hogs and deer. Deer is kind of a pretty good one of theirs. Huckleberries, blueberries. So you seem like you've got the right wildlife in that kind of area to support something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard, like, as far as the hogs go, is you might, because as I understand, there's no limit on those. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's no limit, and you can hunt them year-round around
So
here.
you can just go and maybe just take the hams off them or just certain cuts of meat. So, I could certainly hear or see a large predator like a Sasquatch hang around that area if it hears gunshots because it knows it's probably going to have a meal soon, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's very true because if you leave the carcass of the hog, only thing you keep on a hog is legs and the back strap, you know. You throw the guts and everything out in the woods, you leave the ribs and everything. And that's definitely a food source for them, too.
Yeah, we've heard that a lot, that hunters, while they're going through cleaning and, like you said, leaving things behind, they'll hear the wood knocks or they're smart. They're learning to, they hear a gunshot, they hear the people, and then when they're done, they're just waiting to come in.
Yeah, and another thing, too, a lot of hunters, say they got like 100 hunters go out on the weekend up and down the river. A lot of them hunters would lose animals, too. They shoot them, wound them, and I'm sure they can. There's a lot of dead animals, like they'll shoot a deer with a bow and they didn't ever find it, stuff like that happens too. So up and down the Bogue Chitto, there's a lot of extra dead animals because the people can't find the animals that they shot.
Right.
And where I live, the woods are real dry back here. The time I heard that Bigfoot noise at night, I guess he was I'm guessing he was trying to catch deer because we got a lot of deer behind my house. And it's real dry up in here. So.
Rocky, what time of year did all this take place?
I heard the tree knocks in November. And then, that was 2 years ago. And then this year, just passed, I'm guessing around April. It's kind of a cold night. And I just walked out on the porch to throw something away, and I heard that siren. And then I put it all together. I was like, man, that wasn't a siren. And who's going to be in the woods at night cranking the old-fashioned siren? I don't know if you ever heard anything like that. Anybody ever told y'all?
Yeah, we definitely do. And for those that want to submit audio evidence, you can do that at SasquatchSyndicate.com. Just hit the Contact Us button and you can actually upload your files. But we do get a variety of vocalizations and audio recordings of Bigfoot and Sasquatch and other creatures in the forest. One other researcher I would just point folks that want to do research on vocalizations too is Ron Moorhead, and he actually has a website, ronmoorhead.com. I met Ron back at the April Interaction Conference here in Bremerton, Washington, but Ron has a ton of digital downloads, some really great Bigfoot recordings and audio vocalizations. So if you want to do your own research, again, you can go out to ronmoorhead.com. And again, at SasquatchSyndicate.com, we do have a lot of audio and sound clips as well. So take a peek. So Rocky, I kind of want to go back to your handprint. Have you ever thought about taking molding clay and just putting it up against a tree to see what you could cast?
I never thought about casting it because I never did anything like that before. And it's just like 2 years old, but it's still there, So.
Well, if you get interested, you can always stop by the local craft store, pick up some molding clay, put it up against the tree, and set it. Other things like ultracal, it's just going to be a little bit harder to work with versus a footprint on the ground. So just an idea.
I would like to do that one day, try to get like a cast of it.
So Rocky, as a hunter, I know that you've encountered a lot of creatures at night, and you had mentioned off the air that you had a couple encounters where you had some eye shine while you were out hunting. You want to elaborate on those?
Well, I'm going to start from when I was younger. Where I grew up, we kind of do like a little outlawing at nighttime. You take a light and go shoot some rabbits and coons at night. And when I was 14, about a mile from my house, me and my friend, we walked down the tracks and we were shooting some rabbits, and we walked in the woods, and we wound up seeing a coon in the tree. And I got a .22 rifle, and I wound up shooting it like 10 times, and because it got stuck in a tree, so I was trying to shoot it more than once to get it to fall off the tree. And then I kind of got nervous because it was on somebody's property, so I turned off the light, like 4 or 5 minutes, and I'm just looking through the woods, and I caught like a green fluorescent eyeball. At first, I thought it might have been somebody walking through the woods with like a glow stick maybe, but this was 12 o'clock at night, and that's not really a smart thing to do with somebody with a gun shooting in a tree. And me and my friend's looking at it, and you can slowly see it moving, like on it wasn't coming at us, it was kind of going on an angle. And it was like 4 feet up the ground. And we ran home that day. Now, I was 14 then. And then like 2 years ago, I went and got my deer stand, a box stand on the ground. And this was like just turned 5 o'clock. It's cold and windy and rainy. And I never actually seen the image of it, All I've seen is eyes glowing. And it went from it had like a bushy tree, like 13 feet in the air. It had like a white, I caught something on my right side. It was like a white glowing eye, and it disappeared for a second. And then in front of me to my right a little bit, there's a ditch. And I caught something coming towards me with 2 green glowing eyes, And I'm trying to picture what can this be. It went from like 6 foot, and as it's coming towards me, it crouched towards me. And it basically got like on his hands and knees, and we had a stare off for like at least 20 minutes. It had green glowing eyes, I would say about 7 inches apart, and it's about 40 yards away in the woods.
Could you see anything else like facial feature wise on this thing?
No, I wish. It was too dark and rainy, And there was no moonlight out. I wasn't shining a light in the woods, and this thing's eyes glow, fluorescent green. And I would say the eyes are about 2.5 inches round, 3 inches round, both of them, about 7 inches apart. Whatever it is real tall. And I don't know. There's no Bigfoots in Chalmette, St. Bernard Parish. I heard of, and like I said, I had a shotgun loaded. I'm in a box stand on the ground on this road, and if it would have kept coming towards me, I would have had to shoot it, but it stopped within 30 or 40 yards away from me and just stared at me for like 20 minutes. Then it slowly turned daylight, and then I never seen it again.
Rocky, were you able to discern how tall the creature was?
Well, I was sitting in my box stand, and there's a tree up the road. And the first time, I don't know if it was in the tree or it's that tall, but the first time I seen that bright white eye, that's what I caught first. I mean, I guarantee it's 12 feet, 13 feet. And then it kind of went into the woods. And then the eyes was green. And I watched it crouch down as it came towards me.
So when it was crouching, were you able to see kind of the outline of the body at all, or was it just too dark?
No, it's pitch black outside, and then I had a light. The light I had wasn't really that good of a light. I wish. And I seen it when I was 14, and I'm 33 now. 2 years ago I seen it. So whatever it is, it's been back there for a while. And all of the years went by, I never heard no stories about anybody else ever seeing anything. And everybody in my family thinks I'm crazy.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but certainly you've had your own encounters, and, you know, they haven't. So you won't be the first or the last person to ever be called crazy, but you know what you saw, so we appreciate you sharing it. So as you see this thing kind of traverse from, you know, the high to the low, what did you think you were looking at when you were trying to understand what it was?
I don't know. I was thinking I was thinking all kind of thoughts, you know, like a cougar. It goes from a tree to the ground, but this thing went from 13 feet to about 6 feet, and as it got closer, like 3 feet, so basically he was almost laying on the ground, and his head was going side to side, like just looking at me, kind of like observing what I was. And the next morning I went hunting again, because it's during rut season, you know. That's the best time to hunt deers. The next morning I went hunting again. I had a Q-beam. I went and bought a Q-beam this time, a very bright light. And I walked back the road to my first stand, and it was all flooded, so I turned back around, walked past my box stand where I'd seen it the night before, and I wound up catching something coming through the woods about 6 feet, 7 feet, and it had like one bright white eye. So I tried to walk down the road and sneak up on it and put the Q-beam on it, but I guess it seen me coming, and it basically disappeared. So I walked to my other deer stand. This is like 5 o'clock in the morning. I like to get back there early before all the deer start moving. And I got in my other deer stand is only like 6 feet up the ground. And I looked behind me, about 30, 40 yards behind me, there's an oak tree. And wherever it was, it kept peeking behind the oak tree at me.
Rocky, have you talked to anybody else that had this experience with eye shine?
I have a friend. He said when he was younger, I would say like 15, 20 years ago, when he was younger, he's seen the woogaroo, the dog face looking thing. Mm-hmm. He's riding a bike through the oak trees. That's about 6 miles from my house. And the woods are bigger down there. And you know, it's hard to believe somebody when they say that. But what I've seen with the glowing eyes, and I put that together, you know, it almost makes sense that they do have something back there. You picture what I'm saying.
Well, thanks again, Rocky, for contacting the show, and we certainly appreciate your story.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Well, I know it can be awkward, so thanks again for coming on, and I know our listeners really do appreciate it.
Oh, no, definitely. This is the first time I ever did anything like this, talked about it, because most of the people around here, they don't believe in stuff like that, and they don't want to believe in that kind of stuff, but I'm more open-minded. And the things I experienced, it's just, you know, and talking to somebody who wants to know about it, I love sharing the story, you know.
Well, what's also interesting is that, you know, there's a lot of less people out in the woods. There's less hunters. There's less mountaineers. There's less, you know, so yeah. There's actually less stories, and the woods are actually more secluded than they probably have ever been due to because of the internet and everybody else, but I mean, we go out hunting or go out on the thing, we don't see anybody for miles. We used to see people all the time in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, yeah. Same thing here. There's miles and miles of woods that people don't even walk through. And it opened my mind to different things, you know. So now, I'm 33 now, but I'm going to start looking more into the woods, and I want to go out there researching. I said, I find somebody who's open-minded and wants to go do that kind of stuff.
For the listeners out there too, Rocky, what would you say in terms, like you hadn't had an encounter and then now you're starting to see it, but, what would you tell them?
Bigfoot's real, and that many people never seen. I tell so many people that story, and they look at me like I'm crazy or, they just don't believe in it. There's things in pretty much every national forest, I think. There's many Bigfoots and things that we don't know of. Because the only time of the year people go into the national forest is during hunting season. And that's from October to January. The rest of the year, nobody goes in the woods at all. Nobody.
Yeah, and I imagine a lot of folks going to the woods are, probably seeing something and not talking about it, or just really misidentifying what they're seeing as perhaps a bear or another large mammal in the woods, Yeah. When they actually see a Sasquatch, they may mistake it for something else. It's hard to get your brain to catch up to something like that.
Comprehending what you're seeing at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what it is. Like you see something, and you just know it's not what you think it was, And making sense of something. But later on in the year, I'll get back with y'all. I'll send y'all a picture of the Bigfoot bed. And I watched the video of the Honey Island Swamp Monster, and that's not far from here. It's like 6 miles from my house. But I got video that I definitely believe in it. It's definitely back there. It's just seeing it, to confirm it.
Well, we look forward to it. And thanks again, Rocky, for coming on Sasquatch Syndicate. We really do appreciate it, and I know our listeners do as well.
Are you more than welcome, and I appreciate it. Y'all calling me. So I'll talk to y'all later.
All right, buddy. Have a great night.
Thanks, Rocky.
This concludes our August 2016 podcast. Sasquatch Syndicate will return on Thursday, September 1st. Thanks to all our listeners and those that have been out to our website and those following us on social media. Sasquatch is a controversial subject, so for all the believers and disbelievers and those that will tell you they have all the answers, just remember we're flying through space at 700 miles per hour. Buckle up.